Good evening and welcome to the seventh, eighth. Oh my goodness, the eighth open forum, community forum for the St. Louis Reparations Commission. I'm Dr. Will Ross. I'm vice chair of the Reparations Commission. I'm associate dean and professor of medicine at Washington University School of Medicine. It's my pleasure to welcome you. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces, but I see faces that want to get engaged and really speak the truth as we collect this information about how to move forward as a region. We're going to have we're really pleased. We're going to have the opportunity to hear from an esteemed professor and leader in academic in academics and this community, if not the nation, and that is Professor Jerome E. Morris. I'm just delighted that he has taken time to share with us this evening. As we get started, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from the rest of the commission. They'll give their introductions. Then we'll hear from Professor Morris. Afterwards, we will entertain questions. We'll actually, after Professor Morris speaks, we will allocate 10 minutes for questions directly to Professor Morris. Afterwards, all questions will be directed to the commission itself. So we should be mindful there will only be a 10-minute limit on questions directly to Professor Morris. Then we will have you step up, and our Reverend Anthony, toward the end, will give us a review of how we will proceed. So that there are ground rules, and we can talk about those. The ground rules for those who've been here is that we have you. We'll have you spend 2 to 3 minutes with your presentation, with your questions rather. Then we would not have formal answers from the commission per se. However, we will provide clarifications. I want the commissioners to hear me. We will provide clarifications to answers if needed. We can't provide the answers because we haven't completed the process, which means having time to really review the comments, the narratives, compile them, and then find the best responses, which will be delivered directly to the mayor, Tashara Jones, and to the board of aldermen after the report is compiled in March, and there will be some time for a public response after that report will be presented to the mayor. So that is the process. Look forward to having another very productive session, I'm sure. And so I want to invite Delashay George to talk about our mandate and executive order.
Good evening. I am Delisha George. I serve as the secretary for the Reparations Commission. And with each of our meetings, we always make sure to make clear what our mandate is from the city and on behalf of the city. And so Executive Order 75, which was signed by Mayor Jones in December of 2022, established a commission, and it reads in part, establishing a community-driven commission to assess the history of slavery, segregation, and other race-based harms in the city of St. Louis, explore the present-day manifestations of that history, and ultimately recommend a proposal to begin repairing the harms that have been inflicted. Thank you.
Okay, we'll have the introduction. All our members introduce themselves. You just heard from Delashay George. So,
Hello, my name is Kim Franks. I am an attorney turned entrepreneur, business owner, and also a mom. So I'm pleased to have you all out tonight to talk about how education intersects with reparations. Look forward to hearing from you all, your comments and the presentation from Dr. Morris.
My name is Gwen Moore. I am a curator at the Missouri Historical Society, where I study race, have a deep interest in social justice movements and the racial history of this city. So I just want to welcome you all. as usual, I'm really anxious to hear your voices and what you have to say.
Well, I'm David Cunningham. I'm a sociologist at Washington University, and I study racialized violence and its legacies and thinking about how the history bears on inequalities today. Um, and just echoing all the fellow commissioners, we've really benefited so much from hearing from you through these meetings, and we'll be transitioning at the end of this year into next year into taking all the input that we've been receiving and trying to activate that in terms of our recommendations, and we just really appreciate having your voices be so central to that process.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Will Foster. I'm a local resident here in St. Louis. Thank you all for showing up. Thank you for your continued support. I'm happy and excited to hear from our speaker today, and also to hear from you guys and your commentary.
I'm Reverend Kevin D. Anthony, currently serving in the United Church of Christ. I just want to say thank you for being here. I know you all have followed us from start to finish, and we honor that. So, again, thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. Panel, and we will now have Professor David Cunningham introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you all once again. I'm really pleased today to be able to introduce Dr. Jerome E. Morris, who will be speaking to us tonight. Dr. Morris is the E. Desmond Lee Endowed Professor of Urban Education at UMSL, where he directs the Center for Communally Bonded Research. Before coming to St. Louis, Dr. Morris was a professor for almost 2 decades at the University of Georgia's College of Education and the Institute for Behavioral Research. Dr. Morris's empirically based scholarship examines the institutional structure and culture in schools, provides innovative conceptual frameworks to study marginalized communities, and cultivates meaningful partnerships with communities and schools. A former vice president and current fellow of the American Educational Research Association, Dr. Morris has been at the forefront of highlighting the centrality of the U.S. South and African Americans' experiences, examining public school desegregation, and rebuilding viable urban communities and schools. In 2020, he was awarded the prestigious Lyle M. Spencer Research Award from the Spencer Foundation to investigate the development of his theory of communally bonded schooling to transform education. Morris's groundbreaking book, Central City's Joy and Pain, Solidarity, Survival, and Soul in a Birmingham Housing Project, will be published in January 2024. He's also the author of Troubling the Waters, Fulfilling the Promise of Quality Public Schooling for Black Children. He's published extensively in leading research and practitioner venues as well. Excuse me. On a more personal note, Dr. Morris realized early on that he had a calling in his life to help create healthy educational environments, particularly for historically disenfranchised racial and social class groups. One of 7 children raised by a single mother in a public housing community, Dr. Morris grew up in segregated and low-income public schools in Birmingham. After graduating from college, Morris served as the tenant council vice president in the same public housing community where he was raised. Dr. Morris earned his PhD in educational policy for Vanderbilt University. And again, we're tremendously fortunate to be able to hear from him tonight. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. David Cunningham. It's great to meet you, finally heard of you. And it's great to see some faces, familiar faces in here. See one of my former colleagues there, Malika. How are you doing? And great to see a number of people here. So I've been asked to talk about the role of education in reparations for Black American people. I would like to first thank members of the St. Louis Reparations Commission for inviting me to present. I acknowledge the efforts by many people whose names are known and some unknown, who have been fighting for reparations decades before this commission. A conversation and a commission on reparations, however, must first recognize that African people, before being kidnapped, had communities, had culture, had economic systems, had healthcare systems, had families. Enslavement disrupted these systems. Do I need to say it again? Enslavement disrupted these systems. Walter Rodney, the scholar political scientist, talked about Europe underdeveloping Africa. So when you take millions of people out of Africa, those people suffer and become disrupted, but the continent itself is disrupted. And so present day Africa is directly connected to the enslavement, the kidnapping of millions of African people. Many who just didn't land in the United States. Go to Brazil, you will see the second largest group of Africans in the world in Brazil. So one of the things is that in the African American History Museum, those of you who've gone there in Washington, D.C., there's a placard there that reads, 500 years ago, a new form of slavery transformed Africa, Europe, and the Americas. For the first time, people saw other human beings as commodities, things to be bought, sold, and exploited to make enormous profits. This system changed the world. This new form of slavery represented what scholar Cedric Robinson terms racial capitalism. A lot of other people talk about it too. It used Black bodies as startup capital to fuel present and future industries, not just in the United States, but throughout the world. As previous presenters have noted, we have seen that universities and hospitals and other places have been complicit in this exploitation of Black labor. In fact, using Black labor to build up its wealth. We also presently see this being demonstrated when you look at many universities in terms of football programs, who are really the major participants in the labor force in those revenue generating sports, basketball and football, Black males, Black labor, Black bodies. So you see this ongoing presence of Black labor being used to generate wealth. It didn't just stop back then. We used Sankofa. We know it goes on, that there is no sense of closure in terms of time. The present is still in the past. So what we're experiencing today is directly connected to what took place eons ago. So one of the things that we have to do is that, so we see what's going on, as I talked about, in terms of universities. We also see this reflected in terms of disproportionate presence of Black people, Black girls and Black boys, in terms of expulsion from schools. And that leading to a school to prison pipeline. That is, when children do not receive a quality education, then their chances for incarceration increases. Let me tell you about a story that I didn't want to just come and tell a story, but I've got to tell you a story. And part of the story is going to be in my book that's coming out in January. And you can get the full story there. The book is titled, as Dr. Cunningham read to you, Central City's Joy and Pain, Solidarity, Survival, and Soul in a Birmingham Housing Project. I'm going to tell you this story. I was born in the South, that part of the country where 90% of Black people lived for almost 300 years, until the Great Migration of 1920. Is when we then began to see Black people leaving the South. But I argue that that which we call Black culture has its roots in the South. We know St. Louis didn't have a great number of Black people. Gwen Moore, you can attest, in terms of until Black migrants really made their way here. And so I was born in the South. The only thing that most people know about the South, and I was really born in Birmingham, they know about Birmingham being described by Dr. King as the most segregated city in America. If they didn't know that about the South, they at least knew that Birmingham was the site for the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church, a horrific murder that claimed bombing that claimed the lives of not just 4 little girls, but 2 Black boys too, afterwards, who were shot. And so a lot of people don't know that story. It's not just that, but we do want to honor and recognize those young girls, but also there were 2 boys. So it was violent. Birmingham conjures up images of Black people being forced into vans, police officers beating Black protesters and dogs tearing into black flesh. Iconic images of firefighters spraying black bodies have become etched in the public's mind. Occasionally, someone would come up to me and say, Jerome, how was it to grow up in Birmingham? As if I had grown up on a plantation 100 years ago. You know, I said, no, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. So one of the things I would say to people, they really just thought about Birmingham as being in the past, literally and figuratively. Consequently, I often found myself informing people somewhat of an instructive kind of way about how Birmingham's segregation and poverty today are similar to those among Black people in cities like Cleveland, in cities like Baltimore, Oakland, Chicago, and St. Louis. We see in St. Louis is that Black people in almost every area of Black people's existence experience what Douglas Massey and Nancy Denton refers to as hyper segregation. Not just segregation, hyper segregation. Every existence. This might be the most integrated St. Louis is right now in this room here. So people with some familiarity with Birmingham might ask me which part of town I live and where I had attended school. I usually told them that I grew up right downtown. They would often probe is, where exactly, Jerome? I'd answer Central City, the housing project. So they would ask the question, how did you get out of the projects and become a professor? What's a typical follow-up question? I usually tailor my response to the audience. And then I would say there's a more appropriate question that we need to ask. Not how do some Black people get out of the projects, but why do so many Black people, after deep sacrifices and fights for freedom over hundreds of years, even have to deal with the idea of trying to get up out of the hood, out of the richest country in this world? Do y'all get that point? Why do you even have to frame that question like that? Had not the blood, sweat, and tears that our ancestors shed been enough to ensure that we would no longer have to endure such horrific living conditions and have such negative outcomes in terms of almost every measure? This is what reparations is about. It's about justice for people who endured enslavement for close to 200 years, and some in many ways more, and apartheid for another 100 years. I was born less than 2 weeks before Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. I and millions of other Black children like me would grow up in the ghettos of the United States, and my 6 siblings and I would suffer through extreme poverty for the next 2 decades. We were those Black children that the civil rights movement forgot about. We were those Black people whose ancestors only decades before endured racial terror, with some ultimately fleeing to places like St. Louis for just a little reprieve. Although Birmingham had become the battleground for the civil rights movement, thousands of Black children still attended predominantly Black and low-income schools. While Birmingham was the battleground for the civil rights movement, I think St. Louis, you need to understand and know, and I know Gwen Moore, you've taught the community, that St. Louis was a legal battleground, was the first in civil rights in terms of raising consciousness about these issues from a legal perspective. So we see Birmingham and St. Louis having some commonalities, so to speak. But growing up and attending the schools in Birmingham during the 1970s and 1980s would shape my views of education for Black people. Although my family was growing up in arguably the lowest zip code in the United States, I know that had it not been for the Black teachers in the Black schools that I attended, those Black people who graduated from those Black colleges and universities throughout the South, had it not been for them, then we would have suffered even more. So one of the things similar to what many scholars have written, such as James Anderson, Vanessa Silla Walker, Derek Ulrich, Linda Tillman, Leslie Fenwick, and Jarvis Givens, they've written about the good within the Black segregated school and the educators who worked in those schools. I experienced the possibilities when Black children received an education by people who care about them, by people who weren't just teachers, they were kinfolk. There was a relationship. They understood Black people, and they were working amid a racist structure that paid them half of what white teachers got paid. So these are the people who we endure. So there's a horrific story about the trauma, but let me tell you about the agency. Let me tell you about the ways Black people resisted. There's resistance in this story, and reparations is a form of resistance. It's like we ain't taking it. So my experiences in Birmingham, what prepared me for St. Louis 10 years after graduating high school. I first came to know the city in the mid 1990s when I traveled between Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, and St. Louis, Missouri to work on a research project that would lead to my dissertation. I was particularly intrigued by one school community in St. Louis, Farragut Elementary School. Y'all remember Farragut? Do y'all remember? Okay. Located in the historic, the Greaterville neighborhood. Beyond Farragut's shiny hardwood floors and immaculate hallways, I was in awe of the sense of pride the school staff created with the school and the community and the powerful relationships forged over decades among the mostly Black teachers, students, and families. Farragut Elementary embodied elements of the kind of school community that led to academic excellence that Black people experienced in the segregated South. We know that Black people have always viewed education as the passport to freedom. And so when we think about this history in terms of what Black people had in the South as a framework, when we see the excellence among them, there is another element that really just kind of dismantled and destroyed and created all kind of sordid reputations of those schools. But we can take that history in a Sankofa way and use that to build upon that powerful history and move forward. And I saw elements of that when I came to Farragut Elementary School in the 1990s and the 2000s. I would see elements of that. And we know that in the South is where public education was led by Black people. We know that Black people really, their gift to the South was public education. Had it not been for Black people demanding education in the South, it would have come decades later, writes scholar James Anderson, and also Du Bois talked about. So we know, so any question about what role does education have in reparations, that's the point. Because Black people saw education as a passport to freedom. First, second, Black people also were at the forefront of creating public education for their people in the South. And when Black folks demand something, what happens next? White folks got to what? Come on, talk to me now. I didn't come to sit and just look at you. So white folks got to have it too. I'm going to get around to something. It's called interest convergence. You ever heard of that? It means that Black folks can't have something that white folks ain't gonna have first or benefit most. So the reparations conversation has got to have critical race theory as a grounding in it. Why? Because how can you advance our needs and concerns, and will the broader society, mainstream society, will they go along with it? I'm going to give you some examples of that. So, so quite often, the narrative that we see related to Black schooling during the history, and even what I saw at Farragut, has painted this negative picture of Black K through 12 educational institutions. When I was at Farragut, Farragut was the highest performing elementary school. The Black students outperformed Black students in the magnet schools, and Black students who went to Farragut, based on my research, were outperforming the Black students in the county schools at the elementary school level. There are some key elements at Farragut. They had a powerful principal named Jimmy Irons. You ever heard of that man? Mr. Jimmy Irons. They had educators who had the highest teacher tenure. The teachers didn't just come and go. They didn't go there to get training on how to be a teacher by working on Black poor people. They went there and stayed. Teacher stability is crucial. The relationship is like the relationship of the mother to the child. It's not a relationship, it's kinship. It's a sacred relationship. And people don't understand that's what black folks had and what black folks got to reclaim. So one of the things is that you've got this relationship. And then I saw the pillar, the school was a pillar in the community. I can't go anywhere in St. Louis without folks bragging about Sumner High School and how Sumner was this and how great Sumner is. I said, it must be the greatest institution in the world. But that's the pride that black folks had. And that's a pride that you got to reclaim. You already had it. There's no new model that we need to adapt to teach us how to educate black people. The model is already there. You just got to go back and get it. So reparations conversation is about going back, reclaiming, restoring, repairing. And so it's about all of that. So one of the things is that I stayed abreast of Farragut Elementary School in St. Louis during the early to mid 2000s. I periodically visited the city where I lived in when I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, came to some of the funerals of the people who had died at that school. And I began to notice the changes that would unravel what I had witnessed, what I had written about. Some of Farragut's changes included the retirement of the black teachers and the hiring of Teach for America teachers, the growth of charter schools throughout the city, and a lack of investment in the community surrounding the school. Once considered an exemplary school in almost every measure, Farragut had quickly become a shell of its former self. The school was closed in 2021 by the St. Louis public school system. My second immersion into St. Louis occurred when my family and I relocated here from Atlanta, Georgia in 2015. I accepted the endowed professorship at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. Once I returned, I could see that the current, what we call neoliberal reform movement, had amnesia when it came to education in the city, approaching reforms with a dismissal of the deep history of the cities and the regions black communities and schools. You often would see policymakers and planners were ensuring that there would be very few viable black schools and communities as part of the city's future. I'm currently leading a project that examines how decades of reform, desegregation, state takeover, charter schools, school closing, you want me to keep going? All these things disrupted black people's relationship to their schools. Like it's been a barrage of reforms predicated on helping you, but eventually ended up, as people say, um, what they call it, unintended consequences. No, no, no. We're scientists, okay? We can predict. These are not unintended. This was deliberate. And so the point I'm saying is people know, but there's a reason why it's about what Johnson talks about erasure. Like, how do black people ensure that they continue to have, why can't black people walk around and say, like Maplewood has a revitalized area? Why can't black communities be like that? This is an issue about Black Lives Matter. That's what it ain't no rhetoric, it's action. It's got to be that. So there's a rich history of education, black education in the city. And many of you already know this history and experienced it. That history includes an 1847 Missouri law stating that no person shall keep or teach any school for the instruction of Negroes or mulattoes in reading or writing in the state. That history includes the 1916 segregation ordinance that affected neighborhoods and schools' racial composition. That history includes Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, creating separate but equal. That history includes Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. And in 1959, that history includes St. Louis city officials under the guise of urban renewal and eminent domain running a highway through a black community in downtown St. Louis known as Mill Creek Valley, resulting in the displacement of 20,000 black people and the closure of 3 schools. Guess what their names were? Booker T. Washington. It connects you to your lineage, your history. Crispus Attucks, connecting you to your history and your lineage. You see that? So this is what happened. A 4th school, Vashon High School, was relocated. The history of St. Louis includes men in Liddell fighting for quality education for her children. That history includes the 1983 voluntary desegregation plan that resulted in more than 13,000 black students every day leaving the black schools in the city and transferred into white suburban schools. A plan that cost multiple billions of dollars and benefited white students, educators, schools, and communities more than it benefited black people. This was a money-making deal. Critical race theory refers to this as I said, the interest convergence theorem, which states that significant progress of African American people is only achieved when the goals of black people are consistent with the needs of whites. In other words, white folks got to benefit more than you before we decide to agree to some racial harmony. Y'all hear that? This is deep, y'all. This is no play stuff. This is deep. This is not play stuff. White people got to benefit more than you because white people would not take things. They would not let black teachers teach their children. They were not going to place their children at a disadvantage. They don't do that. People expect us to do that. We were like, what you say, like, anybody play sports, you know, you take one for the team. Black folks been taking one for the team for 400 years. And so this is what the reality of what's going on. So St. Louis as a city and a region, it must be connected to the larger and national conversation about reparations. Whereas municipalities from San Francisco to Evanston, Illinois are wrestling with this issue and coming up with something, it is fundamentally an issue that must be addressed at the federal level. I'm always surprised, why are municipalities doing this? St. Louis got black folks from the South. Black folks fled the South, all of America. You know, Malcolm X said America is, right? You know what he said? The South is anything south of the Canadian border is the South. All of this is the South. And I came from Birmingham to St. Louis. I'm just in the upper South here. So this is all of the South. And so this is a federal issue. It's a federal issue that needs to be resolved. Pardon me, y'all got me to preaching now. All right. So we have to link the reparations conversation on education to promoting healthy communities and schools for black children and families. This is crucial because a great number of black students are continuing to attend black K through 12 schools. We know there are about 7.4 million black children in public schools in the US. Do y'all know that about 4 million of those children attend schools that are black or students of color? Do you know that 2 million of the 7.4 million children attending public schools in America go to schools that are almost all black? Do y'all know that? How many people do you know go to HBCUs in terms of black students? Who knows the number? About how many? Come on, scholar. Who went to an HBCU? Tell me. Okay, how many, about what number of black people go to HBCUs? Number, just raw number. You close, huh?
60%.
About 200,000. 200,000. Do y'all hear the number I say that go to schools that are public schools, K through 12, that are all black? 2 million. 2 million black children. Why don't we have any White House initiative on K through 12 black schools where black children continue to attend? You know, so I say that because as we focus on HBCUs and other black serving institutions, we must also focus on saving and supporting, sustaining schools where black children go to. Reason why they're not part of an initiative is where the black poor goes to school. It's an intersectional issue. It's about social class. We've got to put that on the agenda. We have schools with names like Paul Laurence Dunbar, Harriet Tubman, Crispus Attucks, George Washington Carver. We got these schools being closed all over the country, and folks ain't saying nothing. I'm like, they're not Morehouse and Spelman. Those are named after white people. We got schools named after black people nobody's raising an issue about. But they're serving our children. The most important period of educating a child is when? K through 12. That's the most impressionable period. This is when so it's not even a debate about whether you can get into Harvard. Are you getting a preparation K through 12 that can make you go wherever you want to go? That's where it begins. So this whole thing about reparations for me, black people, for me, reparations is not a question of whether reparations is old. I'm going to say it the way Malcolm X would say. It's really, it means that you have to give it to us now. Don't even wait until next year. Give it to us yesterday. And guess what? That's not fast enough. Thank you very much. Do I stay up here?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
That was quite powerful, and the message we expected and the message we needed. So thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much. We're going to have the commissioners, ask the commissioners if they have any questions about Professor Mars.
Um, I do have one question. I have a question when you said we have to reclaim the pride of educating Black people. How exactly would you like, what are the solutions to getting this initiative going? That, the Black schools are closing, the names of the Black schools are closing, but what would you suggest we walk out this room and do?
Well, one of the things I think the first thing you have to do is get a federal effort to create an initiative on Black K through 12 schools, the same way they did with HBCUs. So people, and there aren't that many HBCUs like there are Black K through 12 schools. They don't serve the number of Black students, but that right there started building some pride in it. And we have more graduates from Black K through 12 schools than any HBCU. It's not about HBCUs. I'm just saying as a people, we've got to expand our conversation. We're going to continue to miss the mark if we don't go below and say, let's focus on those K through 12 Black schools. If everybody is saying HBCU or support Black institutions, Black businesses, and you don't say Black communities, support Black institutions, you don't say Black families, support Black institutions, you don't say Black K through 12 schools, you're going to miss the mark. Why? Because that when you do that, then you can have federal funds designated to support that. But we have, as a people, it's something internally we have to deal with. We have to reclaim our sense of pride. We can't be embarrassed about those schools. We got to say, I love a George Washington Carver, a Booker T. Washington, a Harriet Tubman,
That's
a
what-
Crispus Attucks, right?
So like
A
reparations.
Sumner.
Like the solution to reparations, the federal level has to get in there too, to really make the most impact.
Right.
But it has to start somewhere. So like we're the local commission for reparations. So even with the schools, that's why I was wondering, when we walk out the room, what would you suggest to be the steps to get it to that conversation at that level? Since it doesn't
Oh,
start.
they'll take, you have to sit in a class with me
Okay.
because we can't iron out the steps like this right now. I'm just saying it has to be done. So it's almost like somebody asked me, how should we do reparations? Do you give cash payment? Do you give endowment? Do you give education? That's a question everybody's going to ask this commission.
Mhm.
And the thing is, you can't just answer it right there. You have to pull together and talk about it. Right. But the thing is that I want people, whatever you take from me, I want you to take from me that if you're deeply concerned about Black people's education, we've got 2 million of our children attending schools that are almost all Black. And they're located directly in Black communities that are under-resourced. That's where our struggle should also be taking place. If we want to focus somewhere else because it's cute, then we're just playing with ourselves. And just be real. That I ain't committed to them folk. You just got to be real. So what I'm saying is that needs to be part of our conversation. And that's not the only place in terms of reparations. I'm not saying that's it. There's got to be some money in this thing, some money to the people, because who knows how much money I would have now if I had all that money my folks should have gotten back then. So it's about that too. And so it's about wages, it's about wealth loss. It's about lost wealth. And so I'm not I wouldn't say to people, I hear folks say, well, why don't we just give people opportunity to go to school and let that be let that be reparation. No, that's not it. Do it the way you do it for white people. Okay? You don't give them that, huh? Examples, you know, bro, you can tell us the example. We can talk about the way there was a ship, somebody can probably correct me here. There was a ship that was lost some merchandise during the French Revolution, and the European and the United States government was involved, did not protect that cargo. The family came 120 years later and sued the US government, got their money. The time is not a factor. So when people say it was 200 years ago, I don't care what's 2000. We're getting our money. The other part too is we saw in terms of Jewish people, in terms of the Holocaust. We see that Germany paid reparations to Holocaust survivors, and they apologize. They ain't trying to build new statues and have all these Nazis up. They really are atoned. So I'm not. So that's one classic example. And why is that important? Is because they pay people who had lives had been disrupted, who had been harmed. That's why I began with before we were kidnapped, we had families and communities. See, Dr. John Henry Clark said, if you start everything with slavery, then it looks like black folks make some progress. But no. So you start before slavery that we had communities and families, economic systems, health systems. Then we're saying that's going to be where we start. And so what I'm saying is that that is one classic example in terms of paying, I think, $88 billion. And on top of paying $88 billion, it was really for the psychology of German people, Nazis, whichever one you want to call them. They don't have to deal with it as much because they understand that justice. I always say to people in this reparations conversation has to engage this notion of whiteness as property. What do I mean by that? What I mean is that reparations is fully understood if white people suffer. You don't have to debate that one. There won't be a commission. People just say, what do you lose here? Let white folks in America had gone through some slavery. Whiteness is property. And so it wouldn't be a commission or debate. We always, taxpayers, we've been paying about $10 trillion to give them their money. But it's black folks. And black folks have been devalued. And people think black folks can just take one for the team because you ain't human. That's really what we're wrestling with. Is what is the value of blackness? What is the value of blackness? So we're fighting. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I know I went kind of long, but go ahead. I ain't sorry. I'm just waiting for the next question.
Next question.
Yes, you mentioned earlier about black teachers
Yes.
and their passion and investment
Yes.
in black children gaining excellence. Back when you were a kid and prior to, many of us in here, especially black people, probably have one or two black teachers that we celebrate, helped us through school. What sort of passion and investment do you see now, or that's not happening with our black children?
Well, one of the things I want to say is that I'll give a little history that when Brown versus Board of Education was passed in 1954, but then implemented 15 years later in 1969, you got to remember this is the Black Power movement, Civil Rights movement. Dr. King had been assassinated, so people said, let's do something. And so schools then became desegregated. At that point is when Brown was implemented. And a consequence of that was the demotion and firing of about 30,000 black teachers. So black teachers throughout the South lost jobs. Do y'all know that some states had the teaching population in some states was 30 to 40 to 50% black in the South? Do y'all hear me? It's nowhere near 7 to 8% today. There were like 40% of the teachers in places like Georgia and Alabama were black teachers. Some would say, well, black people go into other professions. Generally, people from working class environments go into teaching. It's a pathway toward the middle class. So first thing you demoted, you disrupted, you fired, and when they integrated, so-called integrated, black teachers um, were demoted and placed in schools. Some might have taught something, so they were relegated to low level. Black principals became assistant principals, often to punish the few black children coming into the schools. And so you had a whole system that was really disadvantaging the black educator and black student. And then when you have that, Dr. Leslie Fenwick, she's a former dean at Howard University, has written about this, a book about called Pink Slip. I can't remember the exact title, but she talks about this. Not only did the black teachers lose their jobs, black community lost black wealth because black people being a teacher was a wealth building. It was a middle class occupation that black people had. And so you got this loss of black wealth simultaneously while you got the demotion of black teachers, while you're putting the black children in disadvantaged environments by people who don't like them. That's what you got. Now, how do you bring that back? We need an initiative on that too. You know, we need an initiative on that too, but it ain't gonna come with no Teach for America, I tell you that. You know, because that's part of a way to destroy schools along with charter schools. You know, those elements are inherently antithetical to black community schools. When you have people who don't know you, who don't know your community, who don't like you, how you think, like Malcolm said, how do you think people gonna love your child and they hate you? It doesn't happen, you know. So, but yeah, the teacher piece is crucial. And there are a lot of, some people have efforts, initiatives there needs to be that too. But we gotta put these things on our agenda. We can't let other people decide what we need to find important. I think education is one of the most important things because Du Bois and Dr. Martin Luther King said, Dr. King didn't like integration in schools. Do y'all know that? You don't know it because they ain't gonna tell you about it. But I'm gonna tell you about it. Dr. King was asked the question, what do you think about integration in school? He said, I think integration in society is good, but as far as schools, I'm concerned putting people in charge of the minds of our children who have a low opinion of our people. Dr. King said that. That's why you never see them showing Dr. King in schools. It's all about society. Read between the lines. It's about society. It's never about schools. Because King went to what? Black school, K through 12, black college, right? Went to a black church, lived in a black neighborhood, and ate his mama and them black food. Okay, so King was steeped in a black experience. King understood that when people love you in terms of teaching, you can't subject your children to that because that's the most impressionable piece. This is again why I go back to the K through 12, how we as a people are missing the mark when we don't focus on the K through 12 as the most important part of developing the minds of black children. Don't wait to HBCUs to offer an intervention. You're kind of too late then. Now y'all see why they don't let me speak around here much, right? That's why some of you don't know me. People don't want you to know me.
Question.
Yes.
I, you know, I've kind of watched this.
Can you speak louder?
I've watched this thing unfurl for myself.
What do you mean for yourself?
With education, it's very violent to be a black educator
Okay.
who advocates within the system for the welfare of black children. I've got three kids ranging ages 11 to 20, and I'm not going to name the institution,
Okay.
but I've watched what happened when black educators in tandem dared to speak out within their school setting and say this is not good at a school that was saying that it was doing so much for black bodies.
Mhm.
But clearly these black educators were not in alignment, and what they wanted did not align with the education industrial complex.
Right.
You know, where you had a system that wanted to bring computer-based assessments and testing and monetize skills. So there's a lot of power dynamics that I've seen, and I've saw all these black teachers leave, not just to teachers, I'm saying educators. So
And a
educators.
predominantly white institution? Is that what
And
you're
now it is now a predominantly white institution. And the only black educator is a disciplinarian,
saying?
right? And the school is transforming into a place where the computer driven instruction. So you see that interest convergence
Right.
that you talk about, but it kept on screaming, we're doing this and we're growing and we're expanding because we want to do this, but really utilizing black bodies. And as long as there were black leaders, educational leaders, so not just teachers, but black educators being leaders, that school was not going to get the money. And so when I look at what they go through, I've got a child in college right now. I know how much we're going into debt. I know how much education costs. I have one that I think could potentially make a great educator, but
It's a short question.
yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is like, how do you create? So if you reclaim it, you got to reclaim black educators. So how do you do that with all of these things in play? When if you were to go and consult in a school setting, and you had to pull a lever, what lever would you pull?
In terms of how to recruit black teachers is what you're getting?
With all of these currents.
Well, you first got, I mean, that'll take a long time. But the other thing, one of the things you are dealing with is how do you make it attractive? You can get economists to answer that question, just like they answer everything else. What I mean, how do you make it attractive economically? And I think one way you can is that, and when I talked about communally bonded, these are educators who identify with the children socioeconomically and culturally. It's not just people. These are black people who understand the experiences of the people, the children. And so that can be a starting point in terms of pulling from a pool of people. And then how do you get first generation college people to consider education as a profession? And why? Because we know second and third generation often dissuade their children from education altogether. And so that becomes one of the ways you can do it. But I could talk more about that. I think we have some more questions.
Thanks for the question. I think we can take one more question from the commission. Okay, in that case, then, we can accept questions from the audience for the professor, about 5 minutes or so. So 2 or 3 quick questions. Yes,
I promised I wouldn't do it, but I had to do it.
please stand up
Okay,
and say who you are.
my name is Ray Clay. The one thing, there's so many on-ramps in this discussion, I'm gonna concentrate on critical race theory, because to me, it's a fundamental. We talk a lot about education, and I think one thing we have to do in education is regain control of the narrative. I think critical race theory was put out there as a distraction. We don't need critical race theories can be debated. What we're talking about is systemic, hundreds of years of systemic policies, practices, and procedures. It's all documented. What we need to do is teach real history. It's all there, and we don't teach the real history. We don't need a theory. We just need to teach what really happened. And until districts and parents and the boards get together and decide on the real curriculum, or some kind of lane is to me is developed that teaches what everything you talked about. You talk high level, the dots aren't connected, but the data is there, the practices. You had the board of realtors apologize formally last year.
Do they get some money?
For policies, practices, and procedures that they had done. It's right there. Teach the real history, because they will never understand the need for reparations until they understand what was really done. It's not a theory. It's a fact. So
Right.
we need to stop talking about critical race theory and present history as the truth, the real truth, and then demand to teach it.
I see. So you're basically saying it distracts people.
It's a distraction.
Okay.
If we are not in control of that, because
Yeah.
a theory can be argued. And what we're talking about is not arguable, it's fact.
Yeah, sometimes
Do your work, do your work, do your work. It's all out there, connect the dots.
I understand. Yeah,
That's
great
all I'm
point.
saying.
I understand people conflate history with. Yeah, I
The
understand.
theory is debatable.
Okay.
What we're talking about is fact, fact-based historical knowledge. All you have to do is do the work and look it up. We need curriculums that teach real history.
They don't want you to know the history.
But unless you,
So- so,
you will never understand. the
Okay,
need.
so we got the point, clearly.
That's all I'm saying.
I appreciate
Got you.
that. So,
Thank you.
I want to, we have one more question from the audience. Yes.
We can take.
Hi, my name is Shannon. I appreciate a lot of what you said, especially about the need for neighborhood schools and the communities around neighborhood schools. And I know you're not an economist, but I'm curious to know what you think about how we fund public schools and the structures, and if you would recommend any changes.
Well, we know it's unequal in terms of there's inequity built in systemically in terms of tax dollars, local tax dollars. So that's one of the fundamental local, their inequity in terms of its significant amount comes from local taxes. And so that's where you're getting at, and that's problematic. That's why you've got to have federal intervention. This. Let me take her.
Dr.
Really
Ross.
quick question, ma'am.
Okay, I don't have necessarily a question. My name is Ebony Stevens. I know you have to say your name. I was a school teacher for 20 years.
Okay.
Okay, I graduated from an HBCU as well. And for my, I graduated from Wilberforce University, which is the first privately owned African-American university in the United States. Okay, for my teaching certification, I went to UMSL. I have a problem, and this is what you got me to thinking about a whole bunch of things you were saying. I took an educational psychology class. And in that class, they were misinforming the students in the class about African Americans. So that goes along with what she was just saying about the history and being accurate with that history. I presented documentation that goes against the professors, and I was asked to leave. So this was pertaining to self-efficacy of African Americans. African Americans are number one. We have the highest amount of self-efficacy of all nationalities or any other people on this planet. But she was teaching these students who were predominantly Caucasian and a few sprinkled Asians, and I was the only African American in that class. But they are teaching, these are individuals who are going to be going into our schools and our neighborhoods, teaching our kids. But they go into our schools with this pity knowledge. They have this pity philosophy of going into our schools to teach the less fortunate, the kids who cannot do, the kids who don't have, the single parent household, all these false narratives, they're going in there for that purpose. So when you are speaking about education, it not only just goes according to K through 12, it goes also to post-secondary as well.
Exactly.
Because they are misinforming these people. So I wanted to mention that. I know we don't have much time. You talked about community bonding, which community bonding also is a very important issue when it comes to our kids pertaining from all educational age levels, because we have to, goes along with what she said again, we have to teach our kids first at home, because we have the whole world against us. So if we're teaching them confidence, self-efficacy, which we're doing a phenomenal job in, but we have to teach them all these things to prepare them for this world out here. And where we are dropping the ball. The last school I taught at was at Barack Obama. I had an HBCU band up in there. I'm a music teacher. I have a degree in opera. Yes, I sing opera. I have sung in Egypt, Amsterdam, Netherlands, on the Today Show, Felicia Rashad's house, and many other places. I play 8 instruments as well. This is what I do. I love my kids, but we are dropping the ball with our own kids because we are not teaching them at home. And it makes it difficult when you are an educator and these kids come in there with these behavior problems. This is what's driving people away, because I want me a franchise and left the school district because of that reason.
So we're gonna have to
This is an
close that
issue.
off. Thank you. I've learned a lot from these two women who just spoke. They're powerful, people who, really know how to speak, truth to power. So I thank both of you. No, well, at this point, we're gonna, let's thank Professor Morris.
Thank you.
Have a seat. And if Professor Morris minds, he certainly can, we invite you to stay and entertain questions after we have questions from. I'll stay here. I appreciate that. So at this point, we open up to general questions, comments from you, the audience. So please stand, introduce yourselves, sorry. We will not always be able to respond. We will clarify the questions. But as I said before, we won't be able to give you the responses. We're not through the process.
We ask that you actually come up to the podium too.
Greetings. My name is Antoine.
We want to take a moment and give the instructions on this period. You have 3 minutes, as Dr. Ross, 3 minutes for your statement, question. As Dr. Ross has mentioned, state your name and what neighborhood you're from. Oh, and when you see this red piece of paper, go up, red knee stop. And so we ask that you come to a close on your comment. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So, my name's Antoine, and I hail from the Hamilton Heights neighborhood. And I was just looking over the executive order, and one of the most important parts of it is where it says ultimately purpose and methods for potential funding sources for directly repairing the harms that have been inflicted. So directly, that's in it. So one thing that can be done directly is cash payments directly to those of us who descend from people who were enslaved in the United States. We've been tracing our lineage. We can handle it. We know who we are. So that part's good. One of the things that I feel that St. Louis can do is St. Louis is the largest landholder in the city. Vacant lots everywhere. Taxpayers' money's going into them. We need direct repair. So land grants, grant us this land, who we can trace, those of us who can trace our lineage back. Grant us this land, give us the grants to put the business on it, the homes. Let us rebuild what was torn down from us. We've been at these meetings a few times, and many people have shown many different ways where we've been broken down. So we want to get serious about it. This is one way to get serious about it. The city is flush with money, and we need it. It's ours. It's not welfare or anything like that. So directly, that's what we're asking. And I think I'll just leave it at that. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Hello, let me get this up. Hello, my name is Michael Gregory. I hail from 13th Ward, Ferguson native, born and bred, owner of ConsciousOutlawMedia.com. Thank you for your presentation. That was great. I wish I hadn't started the beginning of it. I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet because I've been here for months, coming every month. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Black Americans, lineage-based cash payments is the only solution. It's the only thing that has not been tried to remedy the inequalities that Black Americans face. So with that being said, I'll leave you with a short Bible verse, Ezekiel chapter 3, 17 through 21. Peace, power, and reparations.
We're gonna ask you to also project into the microphone because we are recording the session.
Channel, away from that microphone. That's good? Good, okay. All right, my name's Larry Graves. I lived in the city about 50 years, about recently moved to St. Louis County. I actually came to follow up on Channel 5 news story that I participated in on the subject of a site delirium. I had sent an email to Dr. Ross, Ms. Moore, and Mitchell, trying to see that you get the email on the site delirium. Did okay, so good thing I came. Site delirium is pseudoscience that St. Louis Police Department and in cahoots with the medical examiner is using to avoid liability and to cover up in custody deaths. My son was killed in 2019, and it was used in his death to cause the death of site delirium. As I said, it's pseudoscience, and it's fake science. It's not real. It's called excited delirium.
Excited delirium.
Excited delirium.
Delirium.
Yeah. Okay. And
Mm.
it's been banned in California, and it's
Yeah.
falling apart all over. Even the people that first started it switched up and went to another, calling it another name. But like I say, it's fake science, and the kind of painful part of it is that the police implemented it. A private company came up with the idea and pushed it on police department. But police departments, as public servants, thought it would be a good idea to deny wrongdoing and deny compensation to families who had lost loved ones in their custody, rather than telling the private company it's not a good idea. They wanted to benefit that private company because they don't get no more on their paycheck for denying the family compensation once they killed your loved one. But anyway, I was just coming to follow up on that email I had sent out. And his brother here, obviously, I went to school right over across the street there, not far from here, Cole School. Now, you was talking about the good old days. So, I also have a proposal before the commission for educational curriculum. Uh, I think it's through fifth grade to 12th grade, changing the educators. Even in the good old days, one good for black, we had the most inferior schools and most inferior textbooks. Textbooks was out of date, so even back in the good old days, you was talking about it wasn't so good, So, and we wasn't getting really the education.
They didn't give us money.
Right.
We didn't have money.
Right, I'm saying, so even the good old days for us wasn't good, so it needed to be a 360-degree change the way we even educate. So I want to use my time.
Thank you, sir. Just step up to the mic, please.
This email. More information.
Okay, thank you so much.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Antoine Adams. I'm from the Baden neighborhood, North Side, St. Louis. I attended Baden Middle, Yeatman Middle, Northwest. So I've attended all black schools. I had phenomenal teachers that were black, a few white teachers. it's just so much going on. Outside of that, us as people, we've been lied to as far as like they take lottery money and things of that nature. That's supposed to be for schools. So how are all these schools closing? How is all that going on? How are we still in 2023 talking about reparations as far as the Holocaust, Asian people and things of that nature? They're not having meetings. They have gotten paid for the things that have went on, and we are still waiting for these things to change. And today it just needs to change. And instead of just meeting, we need change, and we need it rapidly. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Travis Cotton. I'm from the north side. I'm not going to say which specific neighborhood because I don't look at it as a neighborhood. I'm from the north side. I want to know how many meetings do I have to go to each week in order for change to come in St. Louis, because I'm averaging around 10 hours a week on meetings. I'm the type of person where I don't preach, I actually practice. I'm actually out there in the streets doing the work. I don't do all this behind the desk. As far as reparations, I'm not really sure it's not that I don't believe in it, but if I can't use my own equities in order to invest in a situation, how am I going to expect for a city to give me revenue or money to invest in the city? For example, if I want to buy land from St. Louis, they're going to tell me no because I'm not a developer. They don't even ask me what is my plan. I submit the contract X, Y, and Z. They tell me no, we're waiting on the developer. Well, have you asked me, can I develop the land? They don't. This is not the regular city. I've lived in a lot of great places, Chicago, Los Angeles, and this is one of the most behind cities. And it's one of those things where it's so far behind that the people who have been here in this bubble their entire lives don't understand how far society has gone. But when you're just here, you're accepting of things. I don't accept some of the things that go on here in St. Louis because I've traveled. And if I was to stay here, I graduated at 17 and I left St. Louis and I started to travel the world. I don't regret moving back here, but I do second guess myself because from the outside looking in, St. Louis looks like it's moving forward. But once you're here, you understand that some of these things are just the same and it's a facade. So I wouldn't have moved back here if I would have known that, oh, the city has a website that they're selling land, but they're not actually selling land. They're selling land to a certain person. And if I'm not that person, well, then I can't get that land. Oh, we have all of these programs, but these programs are for certain people. The level of poverty here is so low that it's actually disrespectful because I have to keep myself at a certain level because they'll tell me, oh, you make too much money. What do you mean $3,000, $4,000 is too much money? In other places, you are still considered as low income. Here, they want you to be so poor that you actually have to ask for a handout. They don't want for you to use your own money. They want for you to actually depend on them. I'm not a type of person where I depend on somebody else. So as far as reparations, if they don't want to give me money, I'm fine with that. My last name is Cotton. I should be the first in order to get some reparations. But I'm not going to sit back and continue to do all of these things. So one of my biggest questions is, are we going to continue to collect data? Because a lot of these things in St. Louis are collecting data. Oh, we want to know what to do with the Rams money. Oh, we want your input. But then as soon as you give them input, they change the game. For example, the land bank had a whole reform meeting about how can we help reform this situation. And then I went to that meeting and then the game completely changed and they made it even harder. So before you can submit your offer every 30 days, now you have to wait 90 days. How are we going to sell land in a place that's actually deserted if you're going to start discouraging people? Discouragement is what's going on in St. Louis, and we're going to continue to discourage our children because I am discouraged after I got back here, and I'm typically a strong-minded person. So what I would like to know, what are we going to do with all of this information that we're collecting from these meetings? Are we going to just sit it to the side? Is it going to be more critical theory where we're just going to look at it? Or are we going to actually practice what we are preaching? Because I'm getting tired of practicing and watching other people preach and say diversity, inclusion, and equity. But then what I notice is that my diversity is the reason why they don't want me to be included. And then they also don't want me to use my own equity to invest into the community. So I just want to, get up here and speak the truth, because the truth is actually what hurts the most in St. Louis. Because whenever I bring up the truth to some of these different people, all of these alphabet agencies, there's too many alphabets here, LRA, SLDC, SLPS, SLA. So, whenever I start speaking the truth to some of these people, they look at me and they tell me, oh, he's talking too much. No, I'm not talking too much. I'm speaking the truth. And if people can't handle the truth, well, then they sure can't handle me. So that's it.
Sir, my children taught me how to respond to that. They said, word. Thank you so much. Other comments, questions?
Good luck. Good luck.
So, yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Are you answering today or?
We can clarify a question. We may not able to provide a full answer to you.
Tory Russell. I don't even know my ward or district. Y'all, it changed. I don't know. I'm on the west side though. Kim's my state rep. Kim Antley. Hey, how you doing, state rep? My question is, I guess I'm gonna just start from the top one. Do y'all give like quarterly updates on progress towards whatever said goal?
So it's in terms of updates, you talking about the commission giving updates?
Yes.
No, so we've, this is our eighth community forum. After this, we will have, spend the next couple of months really taking in all the data, actually taking the inputs from here, having those transcribed. We'll write a report. That report will then go to the mayor and the Board of Aldermen. They'll do that one time. They'll respond, they'll have us bring it back to the community to respond, then that report will be final. That's how the process is.
And what's the finalization date? Like when you publish this report?
We're anticipating March 2024.
March, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hold us accountable, okay?
All right. How are y'all working with state and federal elected officials, or is this solely Tashara Jones funded kind of operation?
It's solely a City of St. Louis commission.
Okay, so that means that this would go through the board and the mayor's office, the board of ENA.
Yes, sir.
Will y'all be putting this in a bill form? Will y'all be putting the report in a? There's no way a policy can happen without putting it in a policy. So will y'all put the report in an actual policy to be able to be voted on and sponsored by elected officials and maybe even by the mayor and others?
Yeah, that's beyond our purview. We're charged to simply have these forums, have the guests, have speakers who are thought leaders, present, compile that, and submit a report. That's what we're charged to do. It's up to all of us as citizens. It's up to our civic leaders, our politicians, and everyone else to make that, to translate that into a policy. And you're correct. Nothing will happen unless it's a policy. But that is not the charge of this commission to translate this into a policy bill.
And I guess this is my last question. How is the report being conducted? Is it conducted by researchers? Is this public knowledge? And does every person on the commission have like departments? Like is someone doing just education or housing or food or agriculture or foreign affairs? Like it could be very vast. Is that going to be separated in the report, or in which individual are we currently looking at doing what task a part of that report, so we can know, like, you know, who to hold accountable, who to clap for, who to show my mom and say, hey mama, this the good people that did this good reparations thing. Just want to know.
So the report won't be individualized. It will be a consensus report from the commission. There are 4 areas that the commission agreed to focus on. Professor Campbell, you want to kind of?
Yeah, so we for areas we've identified: education, housing, neighborhood revitalization, policing and criminal legal system.
Business,
What's
businesses.
Business?
That's in the economic.
I think that'll fall under revitalization in this case, but yeah, we'll clearly.
Revitalization.
But also that'll intersect with jobs and the economy, which is another area. I feel like I'm forgetting more.
Health.
No, I think you can, health, let's say health.
Oh, and health, of course.
Health is-
Yeah. And one thing is that our commission is working collectively, as Dr. Ross said. We're also divided into working groups. One is community focused and really working with the kind of testimony we're hearing here. The other is focusing on organizing the research that will inform the recommendations as well. So we have that division in terms of labor. And also, we have working groups that bring in other folks who have expertise in these areas. So we're not solely reliant on the group that you see here today, but we're organizing them.
Who's responsible for coordinating those three working groups on the commission?
So the working groups were constructed by the commission. So so the working groups report to this group, the commission.
Oh, so y'all already created those? Right?
Yes,
They're already working?
yes.
And we can find that information of who's on the working group, or what entities are contracted, or what?
Well, all our information is public. It's publicly
Are
available.
people contracted to do this research?
No,
All volunteer?
at this point, yes.
Are there any institutions working on this research?
So, in terms,
Like education institutions and
you're making valid questions. I agree with your questions. And so we will, once we actually have the report, we are bringing in thought leaders from University of Missouri and from Washington University, from SLU and others. But no one is contracted out. So we want to make sure.
there are working groups, 3 working groups, correct?
Two working groups.
2 working groups, and there are institutions and or people working on it? I'm kind of
No, so the working group is working for us, the commission.
correct. The commission has created 2 working groups.
Correct.
Are there people or institutions working? Like, how do we identify? Is that on the websites? Can we find who's working inside the working group? So the Horseshoe SLU, is this the Deaconess Foundation? Like, who is working doing the actual research that is going to inform the reports, information that's going to be put to the mayor, then sent back to the commission, then the community, like
It'll be individuals, so it's not like it's just Washington University. It's individuals within the institutions. So it's not like it's just WashU and the commission. So it's not that way.
You can't tell.
So, yes, we have the list of the working groups, and the working groups will.
Right, and so that is being shared. That's public information.
Domain.
On the website, the city's website.
Well, I don't know about this. It should be within, the city's website should have all of the information.
So, for instance,
But I'm just asking, like, y'all creating the working groups, y'all understand who's on it? Can I just ask them who's on it?
I can say all this information is public. This is not sort of a static thing where we've named everyone to the working groups and it's just set and that group is working. Meaning we're drawing on, as we know that there are certain things we need, we're trying to draw on thought leaders that to contribute to that. For example, there is a group from UMSL who has volunteered to devote some of their resources to work with transcribing all the testimony that has come out of these sort of meetings and being able to identify issue areas that come up most often, less often, and help us to kind of organize those into our areas. So that would be one instance of, that just came up over the last 2 to 3 weeks where that group volunteered their expertise in that way.
Okay.
You know, we know that housing is another area. I can name, there's a colleague of mine at Washington University named Elizabeth Porter-Glenn, who is an expert on housing, and we heard a little bit about realty and discrimination in terms of realtors. She's been at the forefront of identifying racialized discrimination that way. It's an example of someone who will contribute that component, but it's a dynamic process though, so people will be added as we go, but it's always going to be public as people are added in.
yes, ma'am.
It's not on the website. Only you guys as board members are on there.
Well,
Of the committee.
so, the commission, the work sites have been established. If it's not on the website, then that's a delay. That's not intentional. It should be on the website, and we'll make sure that happens.
And I don't know that it would show up on the commission's page like working groups. So we can we can confirm that, and Vernon Mitchell is not here, he was here earlier, but we can get that clarification because everything we do is public and it has to be public. Right, and we have to disclose, yeah.
I'm not saying it's not public or anything. I'm just asking the people who created the work groups, who,
So Professor Cunningham gave you the response.
Yeah.
are there any other names that we can have to understand?
Yeah, it's,
Legally?
No, the process
Right.
isn't complete.
yeah, it's,
So, no, because I'm sorry, I'm trying to understand.
The process is simply
The
not
working
complete.
groups are currently working on things. I just want to know who's currently or what into, like, and we don't have
Yeah, so, yeah, again, there's nothing that has been done, nothing within the working group is actually formalized. We have a few people, I'm on a working group. Professor Cunningham and I, with,
But I'm saying, look, I'm calling you, hey, look, I'm on my way to come to Thanksgiving. Who's making the potato salad?
yeah, right. So are you, as far as, are you trying to figure out how we got the working groups? Right.
Which committee, which?
We won't let
Can y'all work on that? Can y'all work on that?
yes.
And all the commissioners are on one of the two working groups. We're all part of the two working groups. As far as the research and the work that's being done, that's where we have to call in others to help us, where Commissioner Cunningham referenced the group from UMSL that's working with us out of the Community and Innovation something, CIAC. So,
My bad, this last question. How are y'all choosing which entities and individuals are working in the working groups?
so there's, can I answer about the two parts of the working group? There's a research part of the working group, and there's a narrative side of the working group. And so even for the narrative side, well, I was about to say you're in the narrative group with me, but out of the two, for the narrative group, for example, we'll be reaching out to those who have been a part of our meetings because we want those narratives from the community.
Right.
The research part of the working groups, for example, like the UMSL team would work with them. So,
How did UMSL become the UMSL team a part of the working groups?
so with the work that we've been doing over the last few months, they reached out to us and let us know what they are doing. And also one of the members of that team has been in the community. So we haven't closed the working groups. So if you're offering right now, if you're saying, you know what, if you're doing research around housing, here's my name and number, we would absolutely take it and talk to you. It's not that we wouldn't. So that's what I'm saying. It's not. And for the narrative piece.
This is what we want you all to understand, that we are open, that you're all, we view you as experts on your own, and we absolutely welcome your involvement in this whole process.
And respect movement work also, and understand movement work.
Question in the back. Yes.
Okay, let me go up to this mic. I don't think y'all understand what's happening. I don't want you all to, first of all, I want you to be calm. Nobody got no attitudes with you. Some of y'all, I'm gonna tell you that. I'm Pastor Richard Jackson, founder and CEO of Manasseh Ministry. We believe in helping people who have been incarcerated, but that's not what I'm here for. What you're not hearing, or maybe you're not understanding, is that they're saying that in your choosing, why didn't you come and talk to us too? Why didn't you have a conversation with us? Don't take it personal. That's what he's saying.
But we have these meetings for that purpose.
No, you have meetings, but you did not come and have a conversation with us. You didn't say, hey, I need your expertise.
We have talked in our public meetings about forming working groups.
Ma'am, this is what he's saying. When you formed this group, was it in public or was it behind closed doors?
When the commission was formed?
Yeah. Yes. See, and that's what they're saying.
The commission
you did that over here And you didn't even consult with nobody over here. And we just as more important over in what you're doing than what you're doing over there. That's what they're saying. And that's why it kind of tense up in there. And then he's not upset. He's just like, you all need to be talking to us as well. They need to have seats up on that road too. And the second question is.
Hi, I can answer the question about how the commission was formed.
No, I ain't asked how the commission was formed.
That was what you just said?
No, I asked you why didn't you include them? He asked you why the commission was formed. I asked you why you didn't include them. Why they're not at the table. So that's what I said. And the second question is, how are you doing research and you don't have the participants' permission? You can't do research without participants having permission to be researched.
We're capturing the data.
Oh, you.
Yeah, we're capturing information.
If you're doing it from the perspective of you calling it research and they don't know it's being researched, that is true. You can blind research.
Okay.
I know what I'm talking about. That's what I'm saying up here.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your question, sir. Thanks a lot.
That's how you talk to a man?
Yeah.
Out there, you don't know what a man look like, right? Okay. Anyway, let me move from there.
Yeah.
Let's calm this down.
Yeah.
I appreciate your question. Thank you so much.
You didn't answer my question. How did your colleges get involved?
Reverend, please.
Hey,
Reverend, please.
They volunteer. They said I'm so volunteer.
Yeah. We need something.
But if they don't volunteer unless they get some information, like we're doing something. I'm just saying, how did you make contact?
They made contact.
Oh, you on this side too?
Yeah.
Y'all approved it, right?
Right. Because they want they saw.
That's right. I knew you were seeing you. That's right.
They decided to reach
I would
out.
like to assist with that.
Yes.
And that's what they said. They like to assist with
Sir, sir, please. If you want to assist, hold on, everybody, please. No, wait, stop. Wait, stop.
Get clear.
Let me clarify this. We're a transparent organization. No decisions were made that haven't been public. All the decisions were made by a commission, a chartered commission, we are aware of the thought leaders who lived in this community, and they're being invited. The process is ongoing. They're being invited. There's nothing, sir, please, can I have you have a seat so we can finish? Yes, thank you.
We're done.
Sir,
We're done. You sound like I'm your child and you my mama.
if you could have a seat, sir, please.
Reverend Jackson, with all due respect.
Can you please have a seat?
Thank you.
Thanks. So,
Sit right here.
thank you.
I sit right here. Say no special seat.
Yes, sir, you can sit anywhere you want to.
I just want to know.
So, again, we're gonna have to really be together if we're gonna make this work. We can't go out here with notions that there is something sinister going on. That's not gonna help this process. You have to realize that we were asked to do this. We were asked to be completely transparent. We were asked to be mindful, to take this input and to not change the input, to actually take these narratives, collect them, record them, and actually have them coded and continue to included in the report. So nothing is lost. None of these comments, your comments, none of this is going to be lost. So, thank you.
I have one more question. What community engagement are you guys doing in order to get more young people? But people in general, because you know, it's like this is a great audience. Don't get me wrong. Thank everybody for coming out. But
Thanks for having me.
we need more people because I'm 30 something, 32, and I haven't been affected by slavery, but I have been affected by the inequity. Yeah, I have. But what I'm saying is that there are current day inequities that even the teenagers are going through by the lack of funding for the public school system. We need to get a lot more people involved with the reparation committee because everybody's hurting in St. Louis. It's not just whenever people think of reparations, whenever people think of reparations, they think of slavery and civil rights.
We agree with you 100%. Absolutely. We need that involvement. And it's not too late. The time is here. And so we welcome anyone who's going to assist us in spreading the word so we can get that type of input from the youth.
I'm volunteering.
We just need your information.
Yeah, please leave your information.
My only thing, my fear is, cause my only thing is as a community person who does this work and was asked for months to come here, who refused to come, because I've seen the charade and I've seen the political theater all across the country. It's a dog on your show. My fear is the community feels the same way. And if we ask, I would think very transparent questions around what is the processes to even, like, how are we even accepting somebody? Meaning if the Heritage Foundation, if the Koch brothers, if the Lincoln, like, if the Oath Keepers said they want to volunteer on the Reparations Commission, are you just accepting because we're helping? Like, my fear is not my fear. My fear is my community who will not show up for this, or is telling people to come to this meeting to figure out, should I even invest any amount of time that you're investing into this thing, or should we just do what we do and just make sure the city does not function because we're not getting the reparations that we deserve?
Heard. A young lady here, then in the.
Can we please have a commitment from the committee to actually publish that information at the work groups publicly by
Yes.
next meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
You said the next meeting?
Yeah. So we can make the request, and the request will be made to the communications group in City Hall. But we don't work for the communications group in City Hall. We're volunteers. So we'll make the request. And it
So
should,
they don't give you the information to you, it goes to the communications from City Hall?
in terms of actually who's the staff, who's behind the scenes, doing the communications, doing this, this broadcasting, those are resources we get from City Hall.
Okay.
They have to be held accountable also. Question in the back.
I didn't have a question. I was going to explain a little bit of the behind the scenes to the creation of the commission because I think that that's really important to people's questions. So the commission was created by local Black activist groups that came together and saw that reparations was critical for work that we are already doing on the ground in St. Louis to reimagine what justice and equality looks like for communities here in St. Louis. And so we went to the Tishara, the mayor's office, and we were like, hey, like, here's a bill to create the Reparations Commission so that we can have people look into this work and get public, like, stories from people in St. Louis and use this knowledge to build up a base of research for understanding how racial violence has affected St. Louis throughout the years and what are ways that the city of St. Louis can put forth reparations and like in a very expansive sense of what reparations can look like here in St. Louis. And so like those list of groups that help create the commission, that's public on the executive order that established the commission. In terms of people being put on the commission was open to the public for people to nominate themselves to the commission. So different people could nominate themselves to the commission, and then based on that, they were appointed to the commission by the mayor. So one of the people who is not here today is the commission chair, Kayla Reed of like Action St. Louis, which also helped create the executive order that even established the creation of the commission, like as a whole. So really, like the process behind like getting the commission to where it is now has been like a collaborative process with various organizations, like here in St. Louis. In terms of like talking about like other background research that organizations in St. Louis are already doing, Washington University in St. Louis already had a research department dedicated to looking at reparations work in St. Louis and across Missouri. So there are professors and students that are already doing that work, and we're already doing that work prior to the establishment of this commission. And that is research that this commission is also drawing from when they're talking about the working groups. So yes, there is research that they're coming from that people on the Reparations Commission are doing, but for the most part, a lot of the research and a lot of the background stuff is based on what organizations right here in St. Louis have already been doing and using for the work that we've been trying to do in St. Louis already. So like, for example, like we have some things like coming out of the works when it comes to like housing within the next few months that will also like back up a lot of the data to the housing portion of the Reparations Commission.
Who is we?
So like, it's like the St. Louis like has like several organizations that work on like housing in St. Louis, such as like Action St. Louis and Homes for All, and some other housing organizations like Arch City Defenders that provide like the legal assistance. So like, we have already been doing research for housing in St. Louis, and that will also help inform some of the data to the Reparations Commission report. So in terms of like your concerns about like random big money donors that can come in and like overthrow the way that like research is working and like really remove this tie between the community, we are really against that, against people like that coming in, and we're really trying to center like St. Louis orgs and St. Louis people having their hands on this project because it's really important.
He said WashU?
WashU already had a research department dedicated to reparations.
Well, hold on that question. I'm asking because no one ever came to me. And I'm a very vocal person.
He came to me
about, I mean, I've got input. I mean, somebody thankfully called me to invite me.
So,
yeah, so I think in terms of like one concern that I keep hearing from y'all is also around the public outreach component of this, right? So I will actually say, we know that that is not the fault of the commission. That is the fault of the city in terms of outreach to people in our communities and getting them into the room. Somebody's question earlier was about how do they get more younger people into the room? And we get that with backing and funding from support from the city and like direct outreach, like mailers and like help knocking doors in people's communities and letting them know that this is a thing. But that piece,
can I have everybody, please, I need to have everyone's attention.
Can I finish my statement?
A real brief conclusion here.
As good as it should be, and the city has been open about that. So we are working on ways to like revamp and like revitalize and try to like extend ways that we can do public outreach so we can get these meetings as packed as possible and get as many thoughts as possible to help boost the report.
Okay, so thank you. Okay, let's conclude this part. No, please, no, let's
Wait,
conclude.
can we ask her who she is?
Okay.
Who she is.
Okay.
We just want to know who you are.
Great. So I just want to conclude. We're not going to be able to give you all the answers that you want because we don't have all the answers because the process is fluid, it's ongoing. And I just have to assure you that we're being transparent.
Can we just get her name?
Yes, I think you gave her name, right?
She didn't give her name. What is your name?
I'm Jada. I work for Action St. Louis.
Okay. And thank you, Jada, for that crystal clear analysis. So what we want to do now is we've talked about input and being open and being available, you, community, to actually lend your voice. And so we have next meeting coming up. And so, William, can you tell us about the next meeting?
All right. Hello, everyone. William Foster again. Just want to give you guys dates and times for our next meetings for December, January, and February. I will note that typically we do have a planning meeting and then an actual physical meeting each month, but December, taking into consideration the holidays and just scheduling, there'll only be one meeting for December. That meeting date will be December 13th. which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. Via Zoom. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Zoom link will be posted on the city's website for everyone to access. The January meeting will be January 27th, which is a Saturday at 1 p.m. The location is still being determined, but once we get that, you guys will be, that will be communicated to you all. Then the February meeting will be February 28th, which is a Wednesday at 6 p.m. And again, that location will be communicated to you all as well. Does anybody need me to repeat any of those?
I have a question for you.
Yep.
So since these meetings are, the dates and times are already planned ahead, are you, what's your name? I came in at the
William.
Are you a part of the commission?
Yes.
Okay. And I understand that it is a volunteer position, but it's a volunteer position that I'm guessing you all applied for,
Appointed, yes.
even though you were appointed, but you have to apply for it.
Correct.
So, to your point, the city hasn't been doing a good job at all. The city sucks, has not done a good job at all to get folks into this room. And again, a question I asked again is, when we say working with other government, even other elected officials, everybody can be pulled in to pull constituents into this room so that everybody's voice can be heard, or so that people can be in the know about what's going on as we're having these important conversations about reparations. And so do we have a commitment from the Reparations Commission, even though you all says this is, it's not your job is just to hold meetings, because that's what I heard today. It's your job to hold the meeting. Are you all going to work? Because when I do volunteer work, if I signed up for it, I'm going to work tooth, teeth, and nail and put my boots to the ground. Are you all going to make a commitment to get residents in the city of St. Louis to these upcoming meetings, whether they're on Zoom or whether they're in person? I have a homeless shelter and I volunteer. And I do boots on the ground work to make sure I'm executing that homeless shelter. And so that's volunteer for me. So you all are in a volunteer position. You all are to be held to a high standard because you all are sitting on this commission. Do we have commitment from either one of you all to make sure y'all are gonna put y'all boots to the ground, partner with whoever y'all need to partner with, and not just say it's on the city's website, but we're gonna make sure it's flooded social media. We're gonna make sure we need to go to who we need to go to get some folks in this room, because this is not the totality of residents, right? Right, that represent the whole city of St. Louis.
Right.
We can get more folks in this room. And I'm saying that for each meeting. I went to the last month's meeting, and it was like maybe 14 people there.
So we agree with you. And yes, yes.
I heard y'all asking the reparations,
think-
not actually St. Louis, I'm asking the Reparations Commission.
I heard you.
This question, do you all have a commitment to get y'all boots to the ground, since y'all starting to volunteer to get folks in these rooms? I'm making a commitment, because I asked this last time, who willing to partner with the state officials? We got close to 40,000 residents in our districts. We don't hear from anybody in the city.
To answer your question,
I heard about this because Travis told me.
to answer your question, yes. Not to say that anybody in the commission hasn't made that commitment. I think we're just looking at who's in the room, but not to actually, there are people online that are watching that maybe cannot make them, which is why we decided to alternate our days for Wednesdays and Saturdays to kind of access everyone, because everyone has a working schedule and we try to accommodate everyone. So I want to say that, I make a commitment and I make sure I speak to anyone that I meet to let them know about these meetings.
So yes, we are making that commitment. Personally making that commitment. We have made calls. We've done what we've tried. We've made calls. We are not happy with the turnout, and it should be unacceptable, and it is unacceptable. So yes, we're making that commitment. We need to end now. So,
One second. I just wanted to know if there is other options for intake. So the intake, so not just solely just meeting or whatever days we're meeting, but some people, number one, don't feel comfortable with voicing their concerns publicly. But if there is a way that people can maybe call in, send a message, inbox, using those forms of media. This is the media era. So we have multiple ways that individuals can give that information. And I think that.
You want to give Vernon's information?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. I agree.
It's just real easy. How many people have viewed live? Like, what's your average amount of live viewers?
Because I've been on the live meeting, and it was sometimes where I was the only person that was on.
Yeah, I don't have the, information, that I don't have those analytics.
Library print for free. Each one of you can go to St. Louis Public Library and get some flyers and hit the ground. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying put y'all boots to the ground and let's go. Because ain't nobody in these meetings. And I've been holding my tongue saying that, I'm gonna say it because of you. I'm gonna say that. I'm just letting y'all know. It sucks.
59. We got
And it
59
feels
people live. We have 59 people live at the current time.
The city of St. Louis got, what, 1,000?
Okay,
Individuals who are able to.
So I'm gonna have to call this to an end, please. So we're gonna have to wrap up. I'm gonna ask each of the commission members to spend a minute or less just giving their viewpoints of the commission, and then we'll have to continue this. So, please.
I would say thank you all. Well, I didn't hear your question.
People who are viewing online, are they able to send questions in?
Yeah, so our contact is Vernon Mitchell with the city. I will say this. We're here right now. So, and we are here after the meeting. So you absolutely can come up to us and talk to us. And if you give us your information, so you understand what I'm saying, right? Your city, if you give it to us, we absolutely can't say, I'm saying in general.
Okay, so
No one can say that they aren't giving. I just want to answer this real quick, Dr. Ross. What I'm saying is we're here. That was part of our commitment. The other part of our commitment is to the city. We are city residents. We live here too. So it's not like we're trying to serve for a community that we're not part of. And in my day job, I do the same thing, which does not ever cut off. So boots to the ground, that, some of us, that really all of us, that's what we do. Again, if you give us your information, we will have it. It really is that simple to me. But I'm saying in general, that's my statement. That's my wrap up.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for their hearty participation. Iron sharpens iron.
And I just want to say I appreciate the level of comment, thought. I think that's appropriate. There's rampant distrust in this community. That has to be acknowledged. And no one should come in here and just simply accept what we're saying. There has to be transparency. There has to be accountability. That's what you're asking for. I agree with you. Agree with you 100%. We will provide that accountability.
Well, I'm not gonna say much because it's late, and I know the people have been here for 2 hours. I think it's been fruitful, but these meetings always are fruitful. I don't care if it's 50 people here, or 5 people here, or 500 people. We always get good feedback, and we appreciate your voices.
I'll echo that as well, that the investment and feedback is really pivotal to us as we're thinking about how we're looking our work. And the only other thing I would say too, these meetings that you see that William mentioned about January, February, the main goal, oftentimes we have our whole schedule up on the screen when we have a screen going. By the new year in 2024, our main goal is to bring the products of the research and the narrative work that we're doing for public comment. So the idea is not we just do all our work and then in March it just gets sent to the mayor and it is what it is. We're going to spend those meetings actually bringing draft versions of it to the meetings, getting more feedback, and then incorporating that again. So this isn't just a one-way process where we take it in and it goes out to the mayor. So we're going to keep circling back.
Thank you all for coming once again. This has been an enlightening meeting. Thank you, speaker. I really enjoyed the presentation. I appreciate the passion and concern.
I too want to thank you, Dr. Moore, for your expertise and presentation. And I also want to say that we've asked you all to keep hold us accountable, right? And so you just don't need to
Good evening. Hope to see you soon. Thank you.